The top 5 race in the Premier League heats up once again with just 2 points separating all 5 teams in the battle. And today we're going to go through every single team's fixtures. We're going to make our own predictions on who we think is going to make the cut. And we discuss other factors like the cups, tactics, injuries, what will ultimately be impacting this top 5 Premier League race. Let's kick things off and let's look at the key games for some of these teams first and foremost, because we know how the Prem can vary. We know there's teams that have been relegated, and that ultimately is going to impact this. So, Jamie, it makes sense to kick off for you, and we'll kick off with Man City. Obviously, again, got a win at the weekend. Some saying maybe not deserved. But let's talk through some of Man City's upcoming fixtures and see what we think, how we think they're going to get on.
Right, yeah. So the Everton game, it sounded sort of like, obviously it wasn't on TV, I wasn't at the game, but it sounded like pretty much like a dull, null and void, going to be a 0-0 game. And we managed to get sort of one goal late on. And then that gave us, a little bit more to go and get the second kind of thing. But at this moment in time, that's all that matters is 3 points because of how tight it is. If we just got a point out of that, we would be 7th. 2 points behind everyone else. It's that close, which is pretty mental. The biggest game is the next one, which is Tuesday. We've got Villa at home, so top 5 race rival, and at home, it's one where if we win, it really sort of sets us apart a bit, I think, because the rest of our fixtures are Wolves at home, Southampton away, Bournemouth at home, and Fulham away. Now, on paper, that's a favourable list, really. So, to be honest, I'm quietly confident we can get this top 5. But this Villa game could be everything, and we're not the City of old. We aren't performing at brilliant levels. It does come down to this Villa game, and Villa are a very good attacking side. And when we played them at Villa Park, they were so much better than us. We scored a goal in the 94th minute. It was a complete consolation goal. We weren't that great, but that was in our terrible run towards the earlier part of the season. We were just happy to score a goal, really, because it was that bad at that point.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at you're right, to be honest. The Villa game feels like a kind of a 6-point doubleheader cup final. And then pretty much your other games. I mean, you can argue, as I said, the away to Fulham, we've seen them get some results. So maybe that's the one to look at. But, if you can't beat Southampton away, Wolves at home, you can make the argument I made last week for us, but do you even deserve top 5, right? So I think they're probably the ones to look out for. Let's talk Newcastle. I'll just read off their last fixtures. So home to Ipswich, away to Brighton, home against Chelsea, away against Arsenal, home against Everton. So a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. Reece, what do you think for Newcastle? Because they are currently in the arguably the best position. What do you make of their fixtures? Do you see any banana skins in there?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably argue that they may have the hardest fixtures out of the lot. I know Chelsea have got a difficult one, but the reason I say that is because they got absolutely battered by Aston Villa. I thought Newcastle were going to be the team that were going to nick it, but after that defeat, questions might be asked. I still think they're more capable. I think Newcastle are probably the more consistent in terms of this battle. I think they'll easily dispose of Ipswich. Brighton, I think they'll beat. Chelsea could be the game where it becomes winner takes all. Which is where it's going to be the real test of mettle and mentality for both sides. I don't think they'll have to worry about Everton, and the game away to Arsenal might determine on maybe where Arsenal are Champions League wise. So for them, it's a difficult fixture list just based off that to defeat to Villa. I expected a drop off after their League Cup win a little bit because I feel like obviously a trophy should always trump a top 4 or in this case top 5 spot. But I think Newcastle are also capable of losing at home to Ipswich. I also think they're capable of losing away to Brighton. I can't work them out at the moment. they're such a good team, but they're also a team that has silly mistakes. So, or silly defeats is probably a better term. I think they're probably. I think they'll get there because I think again they're that sort of team who can get it done when it matters. But yeah, that defeat to Villa will be a real sucker punch for them, especially how much Villa have been able to close the gap there as a
Yeah,
result.
the next game for them is so crucial now because it's like, it's a bit of a freak result to some degree. And it's like suddenly if Ipswich go and nick a result, you're going, hold on, are they out of form all of a sudden? And the thing is with Ipswich, we're saying it's an easy home fixture. I found out the hard way that actually Ipswich have got something about them. They took they took 8 point, we dropped 2 off of us, and that was a shock result. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but again, despite them being relegated, essentially relegated, we have, I guess, still got to acknowledge that Ipswich could maybe spring a surprise. But I think for Newcastle, it's all about the home fixtures. Yes, as you said, they've got us at home, but our record at St James's Park is terrible, and that's a result I look at, and I do think Newcastle will win there. For me, it's just those away games. Brighton are out of form, so maybe a good time to play them. But Arsenal, either way, even if it's Champions League focus, like they're still going to give Newcastle a game. Do you know what I mean? They're not going to walk the park. So I think, I think the 2 away games are problematic, but I think Newcastle look at that and go, if we win the home games, we're getting top 5. So yeah, I personally think they'll be fine. Jamie, do you have anything? Sorry, go on.
I do think an interesting point of what we've just explained there, the fact that me and you have maybe just said a lot of stuff without probably giving a definitive answer goes to show where unpredictable Newcastle are following that Villa defeat, which makes this prediction thing so much harder.
Yeah, it is generally tough to predict. Jamie, have you got anything to add on Newcastle?
Yeah, I think you two are a bit. I think you two are a bit harsh on the sort of unpredictability of Newcastle. Last 5 games, they've won 4, lost 1. That was the Villa game. They've got 3 home games. We've said 3 winnable home games, and the hardest one is against Chelsea. But when they play the teams who are, when it's a big game at St James Park, Newcastle fans get up for it. The players get up for it. So because they've got 3 home games, I think it's a real plus for them. The away to Arsenal, it depends exactly when Arsenal's semi-final fixtures are. I do think it is closely around it. Arsenal will be fully focused on that because they've got top 5. Pretty much, it might not be mathematically confirmed, but it basically have. So that's where I was looking at the predictions and I was thinking they can actually go. They've already won there as well this season. I know it's the cup game, but that was a time where Arsenal wanted to win that game. So the fact where they might be, heads turned to the semi-final sort of aspect, I think it's a great opportunity for Newcastle to go and sort of, win 4 out of the last 5 games. And that would pretty much, I think, get them top 5 if they go and win 4 out of the last 5.
Yeah, it's just that next result. If they go and spank Ipswich, I think everyone goes, oh, they're back in form.
I think that's a home game where they will win. I understand sort of like sometimes freak results do happen, but we've all said it. The bottom 3 sides that have come up from the Championship last season haven't been good enough. If Newcastle go and lose or draw to Ipswich, it's a big shock result. And it's like what happened with Chelsea as well. I just think it's not one that it's basically a very nice fixture for them, I think, to bounce back from the Villa defeat.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough.
Newcastle are probably the strongest out of that group, to be fair. Like, they don't, as much as they'd be disappointed by the Villa defeat, they're not the sort of team to go on an absolute stinker of a run, are they? They're always going to bounce back. And when they do, they come back strong. That's what's good about them. So that's probably why they are probably the best positioned team, regardless of their fixture list.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think let's move on to Chelsea. Obviously, you said a couple of weeks ago how crucial these next few games were. We saw, at the weekend by hook or by crook, we managed to get the win against Fulham, which was massive to keep us in the race. And I know I said our top 5 hopes were over. I probably stand by that. I don't think the Fulham result changes much for me. It just looks nice on the league table that we're in the mix still, and we're in the conversation. But you look at our fixtures: home versus Everton, home versus Liverpool, away versus Newcastle, home versus Man United, away versus Forest. I mean, there's not a nice game in there. Let's be honest. The nicest game is Everton at home, and we've seen enough times what Everton can do. As we said, yes, they lost to City, but again, they've taken City and bored them to death for 85 minutes or whatever. They've got a 0-0 away at Arsenal, I believe, earlier in the season. So you look at those fixtures, and it's hard. It's really hard to make a case that we're gonna get, as I said, Jamie, on your predictions. I think you were being optimistic, and even with those points predictions for us, we don't get Champions League football.
Yeah. As I said in last sort of week's episodes, if you haven't seen it, do check it out. I did have Chelsea winning against Fulham, winning against Everton, but I still had you finishing 7th through my guess predictor kind of thing. It is a tough way at the moment at Chelsea, and I think there is also a bit of toxicity around Maresca as well. I think it was at half time, you had the fans shouting profanities at him, let's put it that way, in not what you want from your manager while you're trying to fight for the top 5 places. He's come out kind of, I think he's trying to manage expectations as well, which is not helping the situation. He's kind of saying we've not qualified for a few years. We don't have to qualify this year, where Chelsea are meant to be, a big 6 club. Yes, you are meant to qualify for these competitions. So that's the problem. I think the toxicity as well does add to it. What could also be sort of adding to the embarrassment factor, which the toxic part of it is going to be added to it, is you might have to give Liverpool a guard of honour. If Liverpool go and win next week against Spurs, I think they've mathematically won the league, so you have to give them a guard of honour. And there is a rivalry between Chelsea and Liverpool, so you won't want to do that as well. And I think losing that game could even just fuel even more fire to it. So it really, I'm trying to think of them positives for Chelsea, is I think you've got sort of United in there in that home game. United are focusing on Europa. And you've had some interesting games with them where it's been a high scoring 3-3s. You've had a 4-3s. You've had some sort of tricky games against them where you may actually get away with it playing against them.
Yeah. I think, I'm trying to think positively, and looking at these fixtures. If we can beat Everton, if we get a goal, they're not going to offer much. So maybe you could nick that 1-0, 2-0. You could argue, we hate Liverpool almost as much as we hate Spurs, right? So in theory, the atmosphere for that Liverpool game will be high, and I think giving them a guard of honour would probably add fuel to that fire. Could we go and nick a result off of Liverpool, who have already won the league and don't really care? Maybe there's a case there. I don't know. And then I guess if you can beat Liverpool at home, you can beat Man United at home, right?
But I think that's Chelsea's problem. You're more than capable of beating Liverpool at home and then losing to United at home. Liverpool will be champions by the time they come to visit you, right? We've seen them recent weeks. They've been limping. So maybe you can just take them to the sword. The big issue you've got at the moment is the negative atmosphere around the club, whether that hinders or whatever. But as we said about Maresca before, when he hit that stumbling block with Leicester, he got them over the line. He took you to Craven Cottage. He got you over the line. That's a key thing, getting you out of that. And I think people need to realise that that's a big achievement. If you would have lost at Fulham, there'd have been a lot more problems to be worrying about. He is right. You don't have to qualify. I think the way Chelsea operate, It probably means they're secure if they don't qualify for another couple of years. But of course, the strain on that would come eventually. But it's more the atmosphere around you.
Yeah, I think as a Big Six club, though, you can't just accept that.
No, you shouldn't accept it.
Maresca shouldn't be coming out saying that, in my opinion. I think you should be going, we're going to do everything we can to qualify for the Champions League.
I think he's also,
I've seen Pep say it with City this season. He said, we've now got, I think he said this sort of five games ago, we've got 10 finals and we've got to try and win them all to get Champions League football next season.
Yeah, I think he's trying to
say him to be positive, I think.
He should be. I think he's maybe just fed up with the constant questions and he's answered it. He could have answered it better. I agree. But I think, yeah, the way Chelsea operate, they'll still go big in the summer, if that makes sense. This isn't going to be, Man United levels where if they don't qualify for the Champions League financially, it's not great. But yeah, you want to see ambition and you want to see motivation, don't you, for your players? But Chelsea are fine. I agree. I think you'll beat Everton. I think you'll beat Liverpool. I think it'll be, do they have the mentality against Forest and Newcastle could be where it decides it. You win one of them, you probably might just sneak in there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, if we can do it, because of Newcastle and Forest also been in the race, that would be huge because it becomes a 6-pointer. But I just refuse to believe we're going to go to Newcastle and win. Absolutely refuse to believe it.
Stumbling over the line is the worst case. Is a bad look for Chelsea. If you literally just stumble a line, everyone else blows it, etc. You need to have the momentum behind you, I think, to help set you up into the next season. If you stumble across, that negativity is not going to go.
Yeah. There'll be more questions around Maresca as well. Let's move on to Forest. Obviously, we are filming this before the Spurs game, Spurs v Forest. So that's obviously game number 1 for Forest. They've obviously got FA Cup in the middle, but Brentford at home, Palace away, Leicester at home, West Ham away, and then obviously Forest v Chelsea, final day of the season. Could be interesting to see a showdown there. But I mean, you look at those fixtures and surely, despite a recent drop off for Forest, you've got to be going, we can win all these games. Brentford at home, again, Brentford are a bit of a weird team. You just don't know what you're going to get with them. But Palace, maybe they've hit a bit of form. Leicester at home's an absolute gift. And then West Ham can't even beat Saints at home. So you'd back Forest there. Do you guys see any other, points being dropped here for Forest? Am I saying it's too easy, maybe? I don't know.
So I did have a look at the sort of average team they've got to play their positions. Currently, this is before the Spurs game. They do have technically the best running left. They've got 3 home fixtures as well. But technically, they are on the worst form out of the 5 teams because they've lost two of them. Really, they got the same amount of points as Chelsea in that. Chelsea have some draws, but they've lost the last 2 as well. Brentford, like you mentioned there, Brentford away have been one of the best away teams in 2025. So it's not as straightforward as it. I think I saw some stats where they'd conceded the least amount of goals before they played the Arsenal game. The Palace have dropped off a bit. They picked up some form, then dropped off a little bit. They've got their focus could then be on the FA Cup final if they get through. Forest have that same problem though as well if they beat City to get there. Leicester, gift of the game. West Ham do have a tendency to just throw in a random result for teams I've seen it in title races. I've seen them draw 2-2 to City. I've seen them draw 1-1, 2-2 to Liverpool in title races. They could impact this top 5 on by picking up a point against Forest in that second last game. Forest, it's one where you expect them to get over the line because they've got the nicest run of fixtures. But have they possibly run out of steam? That's kind of it. Have teams figured them out a little bit? Because they've been fantastic this season. Don't get us wrong, But have they? Is it the final hurdle where they're going to fall over? And that's the problem I think they've got. It is quite a possibility.
I think just quickly, just on that Forest thing, it was quite interesting to the commentator for the Forest Everton game mentioned it, and he said at the stadium it felt a little bit tense and a bit nervous, which it's not looked that way in the stadium all season, and it feels like it's finally getting real for Forest. There's been all this hype, all this phenomenal season. It's like, right, actually now this is as real as it gets. You've got 5-6 games left, and maybe that's a completely useless point.
I think
but
because of the way Everton would set up, to be honest, I didn't watch the game, but I presume Everton would have, done a low block, come and attack us. You can have most of the ball, come and attack us, and that goes against what Forest are very good at. They're very quick with the ball, like transition. They're brilliant. So when they've had a team that sits back against them, they could struggle because I've seen City, I've seen Chelsea, I've seen Arsenal struggle at times against the low block with teams like that. And Forest wouldn't have had to play against it tons. They would have had to play against it before, don't get me wrong, but not tons. But I do agree where it now is real. 5 games left. Tight as anything. This is the tightest top 5 between like 3rd and 7th than I can remember. It is where it gets really real.
Yeah, I think we've all constantly, we've all said Forest will fall away, and they've stayed strong and they've stayed in there, and we should have every reason to think that they can. But to me, that defeat at home to Everton is where I look at that and I say, just when it comes to the crunch, they've not delivered. And it's not looked good because the other teams around them look like they're starting to win games. The game against Spurs is difficult. If they win that, then you have to say that they probably will get there over the line. But it's not looking like they will. And I think Forest fans can say, yeah, but we would have taken top 6 or top 7 at the start of the season, of course. But you should still be disappointed because when it's come to those moments, the team have faded away. And that's a mentality issue. They've got the FA Cup to focus on, the one trophy Brian didn't win. So there's elements to that, and there's still a lot to play for. But if they lose in the FA Cup, that could be more damaging, or it could ease the pressure. Again, it's so hard with them. As Jamie said, Brentford isn't a guaranteed win. Brentford don't care who you are. If Brentford have nothing to play for, they still play. They're the worst team to be playing at this time of season because they're going to give you 100%. It doesn't matter from them. Leicester, I know it's not their main derby, but Leicester might look at this and go, if we can do anything this season, stopping Forest getting top 4 would probably be what they'd want to do. I worry for Forest a little bit. I think mentally they might be shot, and I think Chelsea have a stronger mentality than them. So if it come to it in that last game, I think Chelsea would get over the line.
Okay, interesting. And look, we're all sitting here saying, guaranteed 3 points. We know this is the Premier League at the end of the day. We've seen it year after year. The relegated teams you write off and then they go and get a result because the pressure's off. So I guess regardless of everything we've said, we have still got a factor for some shocks and upsets, right? It never goes as predicted. But let's move on to Aston Villa, last but not least. So as we said, Man City away. They've got the FA Cup in the middle. Fulham at home. Bournemouth away, Spurs at home, and then Man United away. So again, not the easiest run of fixtures. Again, every fixture there, I feel like you could make a case for a potential upset or them not getting the 3 points. So it doesn't sound that bad on paper, but you go and Fulham, who we know this season, even Fulham at home, isn't a banker. We've seen Chelsea, Arsenal, even City, I think, struggled against them at home as well. So that's probably their easiest game in the league, and that's not easy. Do you know what I mean? So Bournemouth are obviously a bit out of form, but you've got away to Bournemouth again. Big teams have struggled, not a shoe-in. Spurs, well, actually, sorry, I'll take it back. Spurs at home is the easiest fixture for Villa, not Fulham. So yeah, ignore me on that. But again, United probably focus on Europa, but it's not a guarantee. So I don't know. I think Villa probably look at that and go, yeah, we could struggle. What do you guys think on some of those games?
I've always questioned Villa's mentality. I still believe that this team should have won the Conference League. And I think that says a lot that they didn't. Them beating Newcastle has put them right back in the conversation. We know what Villa are like. We know that they can win all those games, but we know they're also capable of losing those games. It's very much a similar story for a lot of teams in this situation of you don't know what you're going to get from them, and it's basically whoever decides to not be the most inconsistent looks like is going to get over the line. Having Ollie Watkins return with a couple of goals or a good bit of form recently is a real big boost for them. I think the benefit for them is after City. I would say that they're playing teams who don't have anything to be playing for in the league. So the pressures, they can go and absolutely win every single one of those games other than City. But we also know they're capable of beating City. I don't think they will, but they have that kindness to them. But I think now that they're out of the Champions League, they're going to go full throttle for the FA Cup, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that'd be huge, by the way. Like we can't underplay that. Like winning a cup would be massive. So that yeah, it's something that could draw their focus away. Jamie, what's your thoughts on Villa?
I think Villa have got the opposite to what Chelsea have. As in, at the moment, everyone's buzzing at Villa. The fans are loving it. Okay, they got knocked out by PSG, but they were 2-0 down and won the game. Still against PSG, who battered Liverpool especially their PSG's home game, and then went to Anfield and won 1-0. I think there's a lot of positivity around them, and obviously Villa have won their last 5 games in the league, putting them prime in this position. Have they hit the form at the right time is really the question, and the performance against Newcastle suggests yes, kind of thing. So it is kind of the big games they're performing. The only thing I think is the criticism, well, not criticism, the thing with them is they're the only team that's only got 2 home games left. Everyone else has 3. Villa Park is very much a sort of a fortress for them. I think they're unbeaten for something like, it's like 18 games, something silly like that. They're doing very, very well at home. So the fact is they've got more away than at home could hinder them. City next, that game is massive for both teams. I don't think if either team lose, that's it. They're done. I think there still is a chance because I think all the teams we're mentioning can drop points elsewhere. If this was a top 4 race, I would say that game would end one of the chances for them. But with a top 5, I don't think it is. Villa obviously brought in players in January, and I think that has helped them. They've sort of Rashford, Asensio, they've come in and they've done well. And if that continues, I think if it continues, they win more than they lose, and they probably get over the line. And you can go, that's what you use the January transfer window for, because that's got us Champions League football next season. So it's fair play to Villa for getting themselves back in this position. Because if you looked about 5 games ago, you probably thought it might be a bit too much to do, but they've proved it.
Yeah, absolutely fair. And look, before we move on to our predictions, I think it is important. We've maybe touched on it a few times, but we've got to acknowledge the potential distractions for all the teams, barring Newcastle in this race. Obviously, Newcastle, they've already had their cup day. They've won the Carabao Cup. But you've got City, of course, who are in the FA Cup. You've got Forest in the FA Cup. You've got Villa in the FA Cup, and then you've got Chelsea with the Conference League. So I guess the question is this going to distract those teams? Because for me, I think yes. I think slightly more so for us because it's going to be a 2-leg game. We've got to travel. So I'd think, again, yes, it's the Conference League. We know it's not the best, but I think, again, we're in the worst position there because it's 2 legs and it's another game. But do you guys think it will be a distraction for the likes of Forest, Villa and City?
I
No, go on.
actually don't. Why I say that is because, okay, City and Villa are playing Tuesday. But after that, then it's Saturday, Sunday games, and then you've got another week before the game. There's no other midweek game. If there's another midweek game after the FA Cup, I think it could be a big distraction for the FA Cup teams. So obviously Forest as well. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. I don't think that mentality is going to massively impact it. But I don't know. I'm kind of arguing with myself, going the FA Cup final is before this is like the second last game. So some fixtures will be rearranged to bring it a bit closer. I think it. I don't think overall it will, but it's one of them where I'm sitting on the fence. I don't think it will overall because I think City, Villa definitely have big enough squads and to cope with it. Forest maybe not have the big enough squad, but I think they'll use it to have a buzz around them, maybe get away from some of that edginess that you sort of said about the Everton game. Chelsea have the big enough squad to deal with it, and your games are easily winnable. Like you could go to the first leg, win that 4 or 5-0. I wouldn't be surprised. And then you don't need to worry about the second leg. You can rest players, focus on the league.
Yeah.
So overall, no, but you've seen it before where teams do look towards the cup final because that's the bigger occasion, which I think is fair enough, especially for Forest, for Villa, who haven't won anything that recently.
Yeah.
I think Forest and Villa will be a distraction for them. From a business perspective, all of those owners will want the top 5 over a cup. That's the reality of football now. I'm sorry, but that's exactly how it is. From a business perspective, they're going to focus on that. I just think that Villa and Forest might be a bit shot getting that far and then seeing it fall away from them, whereas City and Chelsea have won or at least been in finals more recently. For them, I mean, Chelsea probably do need to win. Maybe winning the FA Cup would be a good thing for them because they've lost a few finals. But these teams have been there and done it, if that makes sense. A lot of those players aren't short of medals. But I don't think much is going to change anyway going into the final running. Like I said before, football isn't an underdog game anymore. So, yeah, I think that's just the reality of the game now. But as much as it'd be nice to see Forest or Villa give it their all in the FA Cup, particularly for the FA Cup's fading sort of star, I just think that City and Chelsea have been there and done it and will probably get over the line in the end.
Yeah. And what is the date of the FA Cup final? Do we know?
18th of May, I believe.
18th of May. Okay.
Is there
an argument? Is there an argument that if Forest or Villa go and win it, then they're going to relax because they feel like the job's done?
There's only one game. Well, yeah, there's only I think there's one game left after that, or 2 games left. So it's not enough time to go and you're not going to sit and relax for 2 games because there's still something on the line. If they fade away from the top 5 race before that, then yes. But
what I mean is, like, for Forest, I'm looking at it more from my perspective in the last game. Let's say Forest go and win the FA Cup, and then they've got a game against us where it's either Champions League or Europa. FA Cup and Europa, they'll take that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think naturally their behaviour or their attitude will shift. I think the Forest owner, he's a businessman, so of course he'll want top 5, but you can tell he's a passionate man. So for him, an FA Cup trophy would be something where he'd be like, you know what, I don't care. We've got an FA Cup. And I think that'd probably be the same for Villa as well, and rightly so. When you haven't won it,
I don't think they'd care. Like they'd be
mentality-wise, though. Mentality-wise, you would be a bit shocked.
I don't think they're gonna, rest on that, because if there's 1 game left or 2 games left, they're like, we can still get Champions League and win a cup. I just don't.
I don't know. I think players would look at that and go, well, I could probably just move to a Champions League club anyway. It's not the end of the world. I think I do agree with one game left, they'd have to go for it. I think it'd be disappointing to fall at the final hurdle. But from a perspective, I would look at that and go, well, no one can take this medal away from me. I would be on a little bit too much of a high, and I probably would forget that we got a game. If you're a serial winner, it's different. But yeah, I don't
these
know.
players aren't used to it as well. You got to remember that.
But if Forest do fade away, as much as the owner's done a good job, I would be asking questions. Why is it when it's come to the crunch we've not delivered? I know that's natural behaviour that not everyone can do it, but I would be a bit miffed. Villa have already qualified before, and I think as much as they'd love to be back there again, the way they are at the moment, those owners are happy. But if they're always going to be the bridesmaid and not the bride, attitudes will change. That's what happens in football. Things change very quick. That's why I just think that City and Chelsea will get there. I just think they've got a stronger mentality to win.
All right, well, let's hope so for our sake. Look, we promise you predictions, so we'll crack on with these before we wrap up. So we're just going to give you our updated predictions from 3rd to 7th. I'll kick things straight off. I pretty much think it will finish in the current order it is, with the exception of Chelsea and Forest. I think Forest will go above us and we'll finish in 6th. So I'd have Newcastle 3rd, City 4th, Forest 5th, Chelsea 6th, Villa 7th. What do you guys think?
I've gone with a small change on that. I've gone with City 3rd, Newcastle 4th, Villa 5th, Forest 6th, and Chelsea 7th.
City 3rd. Is that bias coming in or not?
From what I've done my results kind of thing, and I've got us finishing level on points with Newcastle, so it'd be by goal difference.
Oh wow, okay.
So it's that tight kind of thing.
I've gone Man City 3rd. I think under Pep they will be that machine of let's get this done. Winning FA Cup and finish 3rd. People can't be disappointed by that, can they? Come on now. I think they'll finish 3rd. I think Newcastle will finish 4th by the fact of they probably might beat you, Chelsea, and that will get them over that line. Chelsea will finish 5th. And then I think Forest and Villa will finish 6th and 7th.
All right, there you have it, Reece. I hope you're right and I hope I'm wrong, but we will see. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure to hit us up with your predictions in the comments. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.